On behalf of the University of Illinois Extension Community and Economic Development Educators, I would like to welcome you to today's session on local government strategies and digital government. This program series is a part of the Local Government Information and Educational Network programming. Strategies for digital government are included in 3 programs. The first was held on September 17th, which was called Best Practices in E-Government. Today's session is on technology planning. And then the third of the series, using data and analytical and to drive innovative government, is going to be held on November 19th. Each of these presentations will be recorded and made available for review on our local government website. To ensure the best possible quality of our recording, we ask that microphones be muted during the presentation. We do, however, encourage you to add questions to the chat space as we move through the presentation. The presentator can review your comments and will be able to respond. This cross-campus initiative demonstrates the core mission of the University of Illinois to bring research from the land-grant college to the citizens of Illinois. Each of our session programs have been developed under the leadership of Dr. Jon Gant, a professor at the Graduate School of Library and Information Science at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. He serves as the director of the Center for Digital Inclusion. As one of the first professors in the U.S. to offer a course for graduate executive students on e-government, while on faculty at a leading public administrative policy or programs. Dr. Gant received his MS and PhD degrees from Heinz School at Carnegie Mellon University, where he studied public policy and information management. Dr. Gant will be working or has been working with Adrienne Brown, a PhD student at the University of Illinois Chicago College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs. Her research interests include e-government and digital inclusion. Adrienne's work includes the evaluation of digital inclusion projects, including the Broadband Technology Opportunity Program, including the Smart Communities program in Chicago, and a nationwide evaluation for U.S. National Telecommunications and Information Administration. With that introduction, we'll go ahead and we'll hand the floor over to Dr. Gant, and thank you for attending today.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the introduction, and good afternoon, and hello, everybody. Thanks for joining our webinar today. Today is our second webinar in a 3-part series. Today we're going to focus on technology planning, and then next month on November 19th we'll look at data and data analytics for driving government innovation as well. And just thank you for the great introduction and for today. So as I'm going along, I'm of course more than happy to answer any questions that you have. You can use the chat box over on the screen, and I can read those as I'm going. Or if you have a microphone, you can just click it on and just go ahead and ask your question as well too. And then we'll save time at the end for more questions that might require more discussion as well. And just a thing I like to always say when talking about e-government is that this is a safe space to ask whatever questions that you want. I'll be mentioning various technologies and things like that, and if you hear something you're just not sure exactly what it means, you want further explanation, I'm more than happy to do that as well. This technology space is changing so much. It's really, I find it hard to keep up on all the technologies and so forth. Just the other day, I heard a term I hadn't heard ever. Of course I know about data warehouses, but then I heard the term data lakes. Like, what's a data lake? And so I found myself Googling it to figure out what it was, and it's just a new type of data warehouse. So so it's that kind of thing that happens so much in this space, and I'm, like I said, more than happy to answer any questions. Along with me today is Adrienne Brown. She's a PhD candidate at UIC in Chicago, at the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, and she's also co-teaching the eGov class that we're offering this semester here at the Urbana campus as well. So happy to have Adrian here as part of this presentation today. So yeah, today we're going to focus on digital government and technology planning. So we started out last month looking at best practices, looking at the big emerging trends, looking at a lot of different ideas for what governments are doing to use information and communication technologies to provide services and also to enhance citizen participation and also for governance. And so it's fun to explore the ideas, but it also can cause local government leaders to sweat a bit because it's hard to decide what to do. Which technology should we be using? How should we go forward? How do we get the most out of it? And especially, how do we do it with our dollars and our budgets being really squeezed? Doing it with our staff who are very busy, and also doing it at a time when the public is continuing to become more and more comfortable using computers for interacting and doing government services and that type of thing. So those are certainly create a number of challenges for any government leader that's trying to think about this. So the focus of our presentation today is to dive deeper and really look at strategies around technology planning for digital government. How do we put together a plan, a vision, a strategy? How do we think about the resources that we need? And then what's a good way of putting all those resources and skills and talents and capabilities together to really deliver effective services? Those services that really meet the particular needs and the individual needs of each and every person that lives within our various communities. So that's what we want to focus on today. And in the process, we will take a look at some examples from local and state governments and learn from those. And in our process, we will pick up some new terminology. One is we want to clarify further about what do we mean about when we say a citizen-centered service, and how do we really develop e-government systems that focus on the citizen? And as we think about what are the right types of web design strategies that we need to do, and then how do we build those capabilities inside our organization or with working with other organizations? So today's conversation is when we talk about web design strategies or building IT capabilities, it's very much from the viewpoint of a government leader or manager in a government, an IT director, and so forth. We're not going to get into the bits and the bytes of the technology, but instead we're going to think about the technology as a resource, and we're going to talk about how do we build capabilities to really focus on the needs of the citizen. So to kick this off, one of the things we want to think about is planning. And what does it mean to plan around technology? And planning, IT planning is actually is pretty old. It goes back from the very first days of developing computer systems, and particularly in the 80s and the 90s, there was a lot of planning going on. And really, what planning is, which we can imagine, it's really about how do we identify what the needs are and how do we leverage our technology to meet those particular needs. And so we want to look for those opportunities within the organization, think about how information technology can be used to do that. We want to think about what are the resource requirements, what do we need in terms of people, technology, relationships, and so forth to exploit these opportunities. And then how do we do it when we need to really process lots and lots and lots of information as our governments are changing. It's not only your basic data about services, but frankly, the way we talk now through communication is now digital. We're incorporating large amounts of text to go along with data. We're seeing lots of video and other images also are important sources of data. And so in our current context of thinking about technology, information technology in government, we also have to think about how the data itself is changing. Because frankly, the data is what really drives what we're trying to, how we're trying to deliver our services. And so next month, we're going to drill in more and talk uh, about data. So there's some key questions that we want to think about. And so imagine, we've got 15 or 20 people here in our presentation today, and then each of you work in different parts of government. Some of you work in local government, in townships, county government, state government, federal government possibly, and so forth. You've got special districts, like sewer and water districts, or transportation districts, or school districts as well. Universities are part of that government mix as well. And so I would imagine that if we were to say, um, if we were to compare our approach for developing um, ways of using information and computer technology in government, we would come up with 10 different ways. If, let's say we all had to do the same task. Imagine that we needed to build a parking system, like to collect revenue for tickets and enforcing, tickets for, parking and that type of thing. We'd come up with 10 different approaches for how to do that. Uh, and, and that's perfectly fine. But what we're learning from research is that there are certain management structures, or there's certain ways of setting up our team of people and to work with technology that will help some organizations be more successful, perform better than others. And this really raises an important question, because when our dollars are scarce, our time is tight, we've got to really get in and really meet the needs of of the folks living in our communities. We have to think about, if I've got 10 different approaches, how am I going to get the most out of the dollars and the time and the people I have, and how do I get the best value for doing it? And that's really the key question that I'm hoping we want to answer. So as leaders, you all face day to day this question about, how do we lead with technology? How do we drive and go forward to the next level? How do we leverage this? And then the the real big challenge is technology changes so quickly too, and how do we deal with all these emerging trends and so forth as we're trying to do that? So to look at this, it really have a three-part story that we want to try and talk about today. First, we're going to drill down and look at how IT fits as part of the strategy of the organization. How do we build a good foundation to leverage the technology? And then what about emerging technologies, and how do we develop capabilities to deal with emerging technologies? So let's look at some examples. So let's look at this example. This is actually Indiana. And what's really interesting is that I started doing work on e-government back in the early 90s. My PhD work is in public policy and information systems, and I've just been very passionate about understanding how can we use computer technology in the public sector and the nonprofit sector, and so forth. And so as the internet was coming on, I did a very early study, one of the first studies looking at web portals. It was interesting, in the early days of the internet, the web portal became a vital piece of real estate, because uh, it became the one-stop place that you could go, and from there you could click and get to other information or other services. So state governments in particular, and many local governments, were early adopters of web portals. And so I did a study of state government web portals. I had another colleague that looked at city and local government web portals as well. And also consulted a lot with the International City Managers Association as well on some of this work. But what was really interesting, if we just take an example here, although this is state government, the lessons learned are very relevant to local governments, county governments, and so forth. But the state of Indiana launched its initial web portal in 1998. It's on the left-hand side. And I really like this image because it reminds me of what was also popular back then, was Star Wars, because this to me looks like Darth Vader's helmet. It's black and silver. It's kind of catchy looking, but doesn't exactly feel like a government website, but back then it was the wild, wild west on the web, and people were experimenting with all various types of designs. And this is, some of what you got. The state of Indiana's website was, in our rankings, was kind of in the middle tier, um, and it was very interesting that at this moment in the late 90s, when we realized that, government leaders realized that the web is a good place for trying to reach citizens, they really began to ask, what more should we do to make our site um, really attractive to the public? And then how do we build the capabilities to do that? And how do we plan for this? So you see the image in 1998, and then on the right-hand side was the image actually 18 months later. And it's really interesting to compare both sides. On the left side, like I said, you're looking at Darth Vader's helmet type of imagery, and then on the right-hand side, you've got colors that look more and a design that looks more like what you would expect a government to be, how it would like to be presented on the web. You've got the blue color. You can't see it very well, but the buttons there are all very citizen-centric types of things that you'd like to do. How do I pay my taxes? How do I register my car? How do I find information about licensing that I may need to do? How do I contact the governor and so forth? And so in 18 months, it was very interesting to see this change. And in this change, Indiana went from being a very mediocre type of website to be getting one of the best of the web awards. And then another year later, the third generation of the website looks like this. And just give me a thumbs up if you saw the slides, if the slides changed. Um, and so this was the third generation, and you can see here that in this design, it has a number of citizen-centric types of things, but it's also reorganized so that it's leveraging more of the space to provide more information as well. And so when I saw these changes, I really became curious about um, what it meant for the public. Obviously, from the interviews and surveys we did, people were much more satisfied with with these changes. But then what I really want to know is, what do you need to do to plan in leveraging your technology to deliver this? In other words, if you're going to change from early days and just beginning steps of using the web to getting to that next step and starting to mature in how you use your services, what do you need to do to plan to do that? And so that became a very long-running research area that I focused on and looked at a number of governments to try and help to understand this. And so I'll be drawing from that to explain and to help you all see some good lessons here as well. A second example, this is the Washington, D.C. District of Columbia website. And this website, as you can see, has many similar features as the Indiana website. You see the blue happening there and the red, so very, colors that give a sense of legitimacy for government. You see very citizen-centric types of things with the popular online services right here in the heart of the page and featured sites. You've got this welcome to DC branding that's happening to be inviting for businesses or people who want to move and live and work in Washington, DC, or people who might be visiting and so forth. You've got some two-way or some communication coming from the mayor's office out to the public. And you've got a video welcome, accomplishments and that type of thing. And then you start to see some things that are happening around citizen participation in the right, kind of the lower right, where you see DC webcasts. You can click there, and you can see live webcasts, and then you can also see the archived webcasts. And that was, that was innovative at the time. This way, again, would have been the early 2000s. But what you don't see in this website is what's happening behind the scenes. For Washington, D.C. to get to this point was actually a major miracle. It was probably easier to get the president and the Congress to work out budgets than it was to get DC to get to this point of building of where this website was. And here's the reason: is that while the web is a green space where you can build a website to look however you choose, the hard work is behind the scenes when you try and also integrate all of the technology that drives your data for your local government. So the problem with Washington, D.C. was that also in a similar study, Washington, D.C. actually had the worst information technology infrastructure in the country. And the reason why is that we're multifold. One, there wasn't really a clear centralized process for technology planning. There was an office of the CIO, but the authority for making decisions about what computer systems to buy, what databases to buy, and how to leverage those and other computer tools were really left to the discretion of each and every department in the District of Columbia local government. So transportation had its own, sanitation had its own, public works had its own, economic and community development had its own, the mayor's office had its own computer system, HR had its own computer system, finance had its own computer system. There was a different one for budgeting. It turns out that when Mayor Anthony Williams came in, that there were over 300 different computer systems, all driving decentralized processes and supporting decentralized departments in the District of Columbia. So when Anthony Williams came in, he was a real reformer in terms of technology, and he hired one of the nation's first chief technology officers for local government. And so he hired a CTO, and her name is Suzanne Peck. She had recently retired from being a chief technology officer for one of the large banks in Philadelphia. And she had an MBA background and a degree in MI, and also an emphasis in MIS, Management of Information Systems. And she got involved with a couple startups and did well from that. And so she retired, and she and her husband moved to D.C. She also played in the symphony, so they moved to D.C. to be part of the symphony and so forth. And she, but she's a very public-spirited person. And when she saw and heard about the problems of the computer system, she contacted the mayor. They had a conversation. He hired her to become the new CTO. But she had one key demand. Her key demand was that the only way that she knows how to work is through technology planning, putting together a good strategy, putting together a good plan, and executing it. And then also with that plan is aligning all the resources to help support that strategic vision in that plan. So in other words, she wanted to be able to take those 300 different systems and consolidate it, the multiple processes for making decisions about technology issues, and consolidate that so it could be aligned with the direction that the mayor wanted to go forward with. And so she also did one other additional thing where she said the only way I'll take the job is that when you meet every day with your cabinet, that I also want a senior cabinet position, so I am in that same meeting. And people thought it was really odd that the technology person wanted to be in these cabinet type of meetings, these very senior meetings. And she said, look, how else will I know your direction unless I am also in the room with you as you're talking about it? The second thing she said is that you all are going to talk about your jobs and what's your focus in the language of your jobs. So Public Works is going to talk about what they're going to do about the streets and so forth in the language, in their day-to-day language. They're not going to talk about it in technology language. Economic development is going to talk about reaching out to visitors and encouraging businesses to move and things like that in the language of economic development, but not in the language of technology. So she said that unless you get a translator, that the best thing that you could do is have me be in that room so I can hear from the language of and the voice of the heads of these different departments, and then we translate that into technology. And then I can do the technology speak with my people, but at least we know where you are going. And so that was very revolutionary when it happened. So it was a strategy around developing a strategy, having planning, aligning senior leadership to be connected together, opening lines of communication, and then the other thing was changing the decisions about purchases. So she said that anybody who needed to make a purchase, they could get whatever they want, but they just had to get the budget from her. And then that's where she had her strings, where she said, well, okay, you have certain level of security. Your platform has to integrate with the central platform that we're developing, and so forth. So they went to having over 300 different systems down to 3 different systems. Emails at one time where they could only process about 1,500 emails a day. When they centralized everything, they were able to process 100,000 emails in a day as well. So these were very significant changes that all focused around implementing a technology planning strategy and enacting it and requiring people to follow along with it. And that took Washington, D.C. from being one of the worst places for using technology to actually being one of the leading examples of how to use technology in local government. Now, the difference here between this Indiana story is that Indiana did this, and if you all know Indiana politics well, Indiana politics are to try and have government as lean as possible, outsource as much as possible, and so forth. So Indiana moved forward with these significant improvements by working with the private sector. It actually formed a public-private partnership with a private sector organization to do all the web work and all the web design. It was challenging because you get an outside organization that's trying to understand how the inside of government organizations work. So they formed this more as a collaboration versus an arm's length contract. By collaboration, both the public sector side and the private sector side shared in the risk and the reward of doing this. It incentivized both sides to be more open in sharing information, sharing how the underlying business processes, all with the flaws that may be there, and gave the private sector reassurances that they could redesign the bits and the bytes of the databases that drive these systems, that they could do that and not be penalized for poor decisions that may have been made before they got there. So it was definitely a win-win situation for them. District of Columbia was very different. Uh, DC chose not to have a partnership to do this, but their strategy was to do this in-house. Reason being is that Washington, D.C. is actually embedded into the second most dense corridor for technology skills in the United States behind Silicon Valley. When you drive out to Northern Virginia, you see all the big tech companies out there that provide government services. So right in their own backyard was a plethora of talented people, and then you also had within that group of people who just want to do good for government, do good for the public. And so they had a really good pool of very motivated, skilled people that they could draw on and that were raising their hands saying, let us work on this. Let us try and figure it out. And this is always a tough question for leaders, figuring out, do I make it or do I buy it? If I collaborate, how do we set it up and so forth? If we do it internally, how do I know our folks can get it done, and so forth? So there's 2 different approaches for trying to move government forward with technology. So from here, I think there's some important lessons that I've been getting have started to see, and I know Adrian is seeing also in her research work, um, in trying to figure out that the secret sauce, for making uh, government websites and online government services very focused on the citizen. So there's some complexity that you all know very well. The complexity is that person who's visiting our websites might be a citizen, they might be a visitor, they might be looking to do business, um, they have maybe wearing multiple hats when they come and visit the site. We also know that we have to serve everybody that lives within our community. So, there's always been a digital divide issue that's breaking down more and more as people are becoming more comfortable and we're seeing greater use of technology and so forth. But yet, when we open the doors of a government office anywhere, it's opened the door for everybody to come through. Same thing happens on the web. If we set up a website, it's open for everybody. So that makes it harder to try and design uh, the site so it can really meet the needs. And so we've got to think about what are the skills and capabilities that we have to build in to do this. So understanding the user is tough. The second thing is, and I'm sure you all can tell lots of stories about this, and it's so you live it every day, but you all work in a political environment. You've got the direction of whoever the political leaders are of your local government jurisdiction that you have to follow and support. And then there's stakeholders within your communities that stand on one side or the other around different issues that you also have to balance. You all are embedded inside of the state of Illinois or whatever state that you're from, and you've got to deal with state issues, state laws or state mandates that have, that shape what you can and cannot do. Over the summer, Kathy Brown and I, Jerry Crabtree invited us to the summer meetings at Rend Lake with the township officials of Illinois. It was really a great meeting to go to, and before I spoke was a lawyer who briefed the township officials about the latest legislation that was being proposed in the state of Illinois about the use of websites. Now, there wasn't a person in the room that had anything negative to say about websites, um, but what was challenging was that these proposals had a really big, in fact, disproportionate impact on local government in the sense that they're requiring local governments actually build a website and to meet certain minimum requirements of what data should be available, how the site should work, and also for staffing. So you had from the state a proposal to essentially make what was almost like an unfunded mandate on websites. And you could sense in the room how the township officials were concerned because they're saying, yeah, we want to do what we can to reach our public, but this approach is expensive. This approach requires us to hire people with the right type of web skills to do this. That kind of approach says, data is going to be out there, and will the data be secure or not? Or somebody try and hack into our systems. And so concern about vulnerabilities and so forth. So these are things we all have to think about when we're trying to design our systems. And of course, technology changes super quick. When you're looking at like a mandate to say local governments have to have websites, it's not the simple, let's put up a page, here's basic information about our local government. But when you start putting data there and you start designing it so people can efficiently find the information and navigate through your site, you've got to start using advanced tools as part of your web design. Every web portal that you land on has a number of different tools behind there to give you capabilities to search for information or to do queries. Local governments are one an important bit of information is to get calendar information out there. So you want to embed tools so you can have dynamic calendars as well. Maybe you want to send out news information, announcing different meetings or updates or agendas and things like that. We are in a day where people are just, they make it their business to break into websites. And unfortunately, government sites are honeypots. They attract hackers. So you have to also build in this layer of security for your systems to protect it. The worst thing that can happen for any IT manager or any strategy leveraging technology is news getting out that your system has been hacked. People won't trust it. They'll be afraid to use, let's say, a credit card to make a payment if they've heard that there's been a hack on your site and things like that. So those are really big deals. And then there's another set of really technical tools, again, to help make it easier to find this information uh, and to get information from a lot of different data sources as well. The hard part about this is that you will have to, as you're building your site, you also will need build capabilities to redesign the underlying business processes at the same time. They need to work hand in hand together. So, here's the example. You guys remember the early days of e-commerce. I remember back in 1998, 99, remember one of the first big Christmases when a lot of people went out and bought things online. And we had a return. We got something from jcpenney.com and we needed to return it. So I put it in the car and it was a baby, what do you call it? A baby bed. And so I just put it in the back of the truck, the SUV, and I went up to the mall to the J.C. Penney with it, hauled it in there, and they said, oh yeah, we'll do yeah, we take returns, you wait in the line, and then they looked at the receipt and everything and said, well, you didn't buy this from J.C. Penney. I was like, what are you talking about? It's jcpenney.com. And the person looked at me and she said, no, that's jcpenney.com. They're a separate business than jcpenney. Their returns have to go to jcpenney.com, so you got to go mail it back to them instead of taking it to us. So there's a situation where you build a website, but the underlying business process is not all connected together. Now we fast forward now 20 some years where the public has gotten so used for seamless integration between offline services and online services that really raises the stakes for making sure your underlying business processes really work, and whether you're servicing a customer who is offline or online. I know that state of Illinois Department of Motor Vehicles has spent a lot of time on this very particular issue. Um, to get things to work out very smoothly, and it's a really big deal as well. So these are some of the challenges that we've got to absolutely face when we want to do this. So I've been talking a bit, and I want to look at a couple of other examples to try and help illustrate the types of capabilities that you need to develop through your planning process. Adrian actually used this slide last in our class the other day, and Arkansas now is a state that won the best of the web. And this is the Arkansas web portal that's right here. Now, I'm going to share my, hang on here, I'm going to do a couple things, and just bear with me. And what I am going to do is I'm getting ready to share my desktop. And oops. Okay. So there's my desktop, and I hope that you can see it. What you should see is a picture of the Arkansas website. It'll say something like Wayback Machine Internet Archive, and there's a kind of a funky looking Arkansas website. Can you guys just give me a thumbs up if you see that? Okay, great. So a couple things. A nice little tool that if you want to explore websites, not only the current website, but to go back in time to see how they've changed, use the Wayback Machine. I like doing this. I get a lot of ideas by looking and just browsing at other people's websites, other local government websites. The Wayback Machine is really cool because it archives the internet, the entire internet. And it's been doing it since, I want to say 96, 95, 96, something like that. And so you can go back in time and you can see a website. Um, Sometimes it looks a little, the format might be screwed up like this one is, and certain things may not work, but it at least gives you a sense of what was on the page. So I went back to Arkansas, and this goes back to February 13th of 1998. The Wayback Machine, just Google Wayback Machine and it will take you there, and you can just type in the URL. And it has here a time series of all the different captures. Each time an image of this website was captured by the Wayback Machine. You see Mike Huckabee over here, and you see, it's funny as you see him on TV now, how he's has looked much younger when he was governor as well. But nonetheless, you get to see the early days of their website. So here it is back in February of 1998. You've got this, and this was a popular thing that you would see both at local governments and state governments. You'd have a nice image to give you a warm feeling about your local government, about where it is. Usually there'd be a greeting from the mayor or from the governor. Um, and then there usually is some organization of links that take you to important things. You had a link here going to Arkansas government, travel and tourism, things like that. You had a link here to legislative information and so forth. Um, you also had the weather. Um, just a quick question. Why do you think a lot of government websites, both local and state websites, include weather? I'm just curious people's thoughts or opinions about that. You can chat, you can just type it in the chat if you've got a quick answer. So why do you think we see weather on a local government website? Or and similarly, why do we see a lot of local pictures? Yeah, the great answers. Yeah, it's great for business development. People may be going there because they want to maybe move to Arkansas, and it's good to know what the weather's like when you're there. It's I think it's a great icebreaker in many ways, because when I'm on the web sometimes I'm really wondering where am I really, and if I ever talk to somebody where I get the number through the web, I want to know where they are, so you can build a bond real quickly when you start the conversation. So I think that's really good. Another thing is that weather helps make the site what they call sticky. Have you heard this term? It comes from marketing, but sticky, meaning I want you to return and reuse the site. So by putting the weather, and as someone said, you can easily update weather information. Well, that makes the site attractive for coming back again and checking the weather. Because you're going to have up-to-date information that's on there. So it's it's a small thing, but it's actually very powerful for really helping to build an empathetic relationship with the public. Another side note, and we'll talk about this next month when we talk about data, but the weather data is actually one of the biggest open government data sets that we have. Most of the weather that we see on television and so forth and on websites is driven from government data from NOAA. And a lot of people don't realize that. So we'll talk more about that next week. And it's in an open format that anybody can use as well. So here's the site. it ranked kind of middle of the road and so forth. And so you can go here and advance forward. So let me jump ahead 5 years. Um, so we're at 98. So let me go to 2003 February. And let's look at the site. It's going to refresh, and it's just taking a minute to refresh. Okay. And so here's the site 5 years later. Mike Huckabee is still governor. His pictures moved from the left to the right. Um, and their focus, and they've got this nice government information on the left-hand side here. It's very citizen-centric, meaning that you just click on there and it will take you to more information. So a citizen doesn't need to know how government is organized. It's got a fresh new set of online services, especially around licensing. Obviously, this was a time, 2003, security was high priority, post 9/11, and so you can see that information here as well. And again, they've got the nice graphics that give you nice pictures of Arkansas. Arkansas is a beautiful state. I've spent some time there, and the pictures are great for, as we mentioned, and they're adding this search tool as well. So good site. Um, and let's jump ahead. So we're at 93. So let's go to 2008. Let's see here. That's February 2008. And this is the site 5 years later in 2008. So now we've got a new governor, Mike Beebe. Uh, you've got a shift in the overall design. First of all, the site centers on the page naturally. Normally the page, you don't have your page full screen like this, but if you were to look on a normal screen, this would be nicely centered, very attractive. The coloring is very decent. Again, Arkansas has been very good at organizing information for make it easy for citizens to find things. They're doing more here in this center part, and this wasn't a big trend. This was doing more things to make things sticky by having headlines and top online services. You saw this with Washington, D.C. You'll notice the weather is still there. And you've got meetings and events and so forth. And then you also see them starting to make things more citizen focused, where they say, put in your zip code here, and we will further customize the site based on your exact location of where you live. And that's a nice thing to make it more citizen focused. And then let's jump to today. So this is the site today. This is the version that won the best of the web. And you'll see a lot of similarities. You'll notice that first those pictures are there and they rotate. Where actually now, if you're a citizen, you can upload your favorite pictures of scenic shots in Arkansas, and they'll get into the rotation of the website. You've got the site now focused on searching, and it kind of has a look and feel like the Google search or the Bing search or Yahoo search. Where you just put in your search term and the computer system will do the rest of the work for you. It's got this nice trending searches to let you know what other people are looking for and so forth. They've chunked the information into three groups, the parents and families, and then when you hover over it, you see the different services that are available. Then if you're looking at citizen-related services, finding officials, finding a job, property taxes, sign up for alerts, that's available there. And then business owners, business tax center, payment services, professional licenses, and so forth. It's organized there. So they've thought about the three main groups that come to their site and then organize the information above the fold to make it easy for you to use. Now they've done some other things. It has the look and feel like many of the news sites that you're starting to see. I like this new calendaring system. Again, weather brings people back. Calendars are huge because people want to know when are the different meetings. And that helps with public disclosure, public sharing. And And what I like about it is that it's made it easy for you to set up your calendar and to actually get the updates onto your smart device as well. So it takes a step out of actually typing in, the event. And you can set up email reminders and so forth. And I think that's a really nice feature that I can certainly see local government also grabbing hold, organizing, with calendars and trying to automate the whole calendaring process. I think would far exceed what's required when you have to meet the public meeting guidelines. Here's a third thing that I really like, and again, it's designed to help provide information that is focused on the needs of your people that live in your area. Maps. I teach mapping, geographic information systems. And the reason why I like it here is that it helps to tailor information specifically about around where you live. So you can activate this map. And again, we saw examples like in Washington, D.C. One reason why they stood out is that they started using more maps. So now with the map, I can see where different government services are. I can click on it and get information about that service, the address. Other local governments gone further where you can have the hours and time. You can have wait times available on here by clicking on it and so forth. They've identified how to find jobs that might be near the area where you're looking, what meetings might be near, and then also what services may be near as well. And then you also can click on My Elected Officials to know what elected official is responsible for representing people and activities in that particular area. And what's really nice about this is that you don't have to leave the page to get this information. Things we're learning from e-commerce in terms of meeting the needs of the citizen, of the customer, is you want to keep them on the page. You don't want to go to other pages. When you start clicking away, you lose people. Amazon has a one-click rule. You got to be able to buy it in one click. And so we're starting to see that being adopted in government as well too. Find your elected officials. There's a calendar, and then at the bottom here are those social media types of things. So here's the feed for the tweets, ways to stay connected through all different types of social media: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, television, and so forth. And then also with Flickr to upload your photos for the Arkansas.gov Flickr gallery. So you see all these things all on let's see, all on the page. Uh-oh, can't. How do I get out of here? Hang on a second. All right. We did a similar thing, looked at Illinois over time, and it's really interesting to see the changes. It was pretty text oriented. Then you went to, again, very text and hyperlinked oriented, to a really busy type of site, but still link driven, to where you are today, and it's still very text and link heavy. So it's not as user friendly as what you would expect. And I think you have to build the right types of capabilities to be able to do that. So how do we do this? And we have only a few minutes left. Well, the capabilities fall in 4 different areas. It's about your people. It's about your technology infrastructure. Governments can't do it alone. They have to build relationships with others. And also a systems thinking about how do we really meet all the needs of the public as we're trying to develop these capabilities. When we think about the technology, we really need a great technology team, or partner with one if we use the private sector to do this. And we really want to, it's not about the technologies, but it's about how do we marry the technology with the underlying business processes. More and more with technology, we also have to manage those contracts and with those people providing and companies that are providing services. So it takes really good skill to manage those contracts. So you can clearly translate what your needs are, verify and confirm that the tech company has actually delivered what they said, make sure that it's well protected, and that it's maintained as well. And so those are very important capabilities to focus on. The second important capability um, is a maturity model in terms of your investments. Oftentimes, we're at the beginning stage where we're looking more at e-government as different projects versus a long-range plan. I think you have to get out of project mode and say, what is our vision? What's our strategy to get there? And then as you move forward, your investments in technology should all work together to really help change how you're delivering service. So, delivering services. So I think that's very important to do. And then lastly, I think there's a number of planning steps that you have to make. Here, this is actually from the Center for Technology and Government at SUNY Albany. They do really great work there, and if you're ever looking for really good resources, it's a great place to look on their website and so forth. I've worked with them over the years as well. But for making good choices, I think there's three phases we have to go through. We've got to understand the problem, identify and test solutions, and then evaluate alternatives, and then make the smart choice. So to understand the problem, it requires visioning, talking to people that live in your community, talking to stakeholders, and asking them what's important to you. What do you want to see on our websites? This is going to bring all kinds of excitement of new ideas, but it also may bring out fears, and you want to try and understand both your hopes and your fears for doing this. The stakeholder assessment is essential for doing this. And try and figure out what people align in support and where there may be disagreements. And from there, that can give you a good sense of how to begin to move forward. The second step is to think about how do I identify and test solutions. As I mentioned earlier, there's multiple ways of trying to deliver service on the web. And I think you have to set up a good test bed to try out the different ideas. And so you want to look at best practices and current research. You want to talk to people about their experiences. Look at what they're saying in the news. Look at examples. And then you want to develop different ideas and try them out. And so a big part of what can help you be successful is helping you to be comfortable with that. And I think it's also important to redesign your budget to assign a portion of your budget to experiment or play with these different approaches as well. Lastly, you've got to evaluate the different alternatives and make a choice. So by doing this, there's different ways of doing it. You can do it more through a cost and financial way by doing cost-benefit analysis. You can also do a risk analysis. What's at stake if we don't do this? What's the risk if we do? And then there's more sophisticated analysis with econometrics and that type of thing. But I think the bottom line is that you have to ask yourself is what are our strengths in our organization? What are our weaknesses? If we decide to go forward, do we have the capabilities or not? And if we don't, how do we get them as well? And I think it's important to take your time, be patient, and don't get rushed into making a decision until you're really comfortable and until you're really ready. And talk to lots and lots and lots of people about it. So I think and then you're at a point where you obviously need to make a business case to probably your councils and so forth. But I would really pitch it as if you were like a business and think about what's your vision, what's the plan, what are the risks, what are the costs, and what are the alternatives, and have a good rich discussion about it. Oftentimes I see decisions get focused on one alternative and not consider others, and I see another failure where you don't really think about the business case. What's it going to cost us to do this as well? So I think you got to really slow down and do those types of things. So So business technology planning, I think, is essential for being successful. I think it drives the success that we see from lots of different examples. But yet going forward with e-government is hard because there's uncertainty about the technology. There's uncertainty about, do I have the right people, and then will the public accept and use these new services that we're trying to develop. I think going forward, I think it's good to develop planning tools and really slow down, do your cost benefit analysis, build the business case, invite the public to participate in the process. Um, and I think those are some of the key things for success. So, um, and security, yeah, is such an important issue to consider, especially in these days. So, I'm happy to take a few questions, and I hope those helped you think about planning more as well. And again, as I said in our last presentation, that one of the one of our goals with our grant, first of all, it's great working with Extension, and one of our goals is in our partnership is to be able to be a resource to you all. So if you do have other needs, or if you want to follow up more to talk more specific about planning for your e-government initiatives, this is my area of expertise. I do this with lots of governments in the U.S. and in other parts of the world, and I really enjoy doing this. So if you have further questions and we can help, I would like to be able to do that. Um, yeah, we've have started collecting some readings, and actually we'll be launching an e-government part to our website, so we'll have more of those readings available to you. Um, but I don't have one or two in particular that kind of summarize all this because this pulls from a lot of different places as well. But on the issues around IT planning, probably one of the best sources to go to is at the Center for Technology and Government. They've got some really great resources there, specifically on making smart IT choices. Um, yeah. But as we get our the website developed with all of our readings and so forth and links, we'll certainly send that out to everyone as well. And that's also part of our research grant that we have with Extension to put that together and make it available to you all. Okay. Well, if you don't have any questions, you can email me at jongant@illinois.edu and be happy to talk with you more. And if there's nothing else, I'll turn it over to Kathy and
Thank you, Dr. Gant,
yeah.
for presenting today our technology planning. The discussion today was very insightful and really opened the door for all of us to understand this side of technology planning. Our next webinar will be November the 19th, which will be the third and final of the series. Using data and analytics to drive innovative government will be the topic. We look forward to having everyone there, and we look forward to November 19th.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.